time for August the 26th, beginning with old business and approval of the minutes of August the 19th. I entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of the August 19th meeting. All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Going on to COVID-19. County Manager, Kathleen, you're going to present?
Yes, I'll present this. So the County Council approved an addendum to the Human Resources Policy 11.0 benefits and applicable collective bargaining agreements with unions and guilds back on March 18th, 2020. This addendum clarified certain leaves available to employees due to the COVID-19 pandemic. As the county continues to face challenges with COVID-19, staff is recommending extending this addendum through December 31st, 2020. It is set to expire on August 31st.
So we are, I guess the council then needs to look at this and extend it. Is that what we're looking at here?
Yes.
Okay.
So extending the current addendum that it's set to expire August 31st, we're proposing to extend the same exact addendum through the end of the year.
Okay. Do we need a motion for that then?
Yes, please.
Okay, I would entertain a motion for that. I think it's prudent for us to do so.
Madam Chair, motion to extend the benefit.
The second, it's been moved and seconded to extend our COVID-19 policy to the end of the year. And any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much. Moving on to business. Title 40 amendment.
Good morning, councillors. It's good to see you. I have Colette Anderson and I believe Mike Salis. I believe he's on the line. He worked on the staff report and on this particular issue. So he's going to be presenting a more detailed information to the council. But this is more of bringing to the council attention on an issue that we think the council and the county needs to address, and that is identifying and citing of essential public facilities. The staff report is very clear, but let me just briefly indicate that in the current county comprehensive plan, the countywide planning policies, and I don't have to read all of them, but let me just mention a few. Countywide planning policies 6.0.10, 6.0.11, and 6.0.12 all provides or calls for identifying and citing of essential public facilities. County policy 6.1.6 specifically states develop a process for identifying citing essential regional public facilities. So the word there is develop a process. Currently, we don't have that process that is codified. So that is why we are bringing this issue to council attention and hopefully directing us to put it on our work program to clearly define and have it codify what is essential public facilities. And then hopefully that will bring us into compliance with the GMS section that calls for counties to develop a process for identifying and citing of essential public facilities. I am also aware that there are two both Senate and House bill that maybe Mike could get into that calls for developing a community-based behavioral health facilities, and that two bills call for the Department of Commerce to come up with a model ordinance, and that is in the works. So we don't want to do this 2 times. So hopefully, as soon as that model ordinance comes out, we will incorporate that with developing a code to address how the county will process siting of essential public facilities. With that, I'll turn it over to Mike Salas and have him go through the staff report if it's on the line.
Can everyone hear me? Good morning, Council. I just to let you guys know, my name is Mike Salas. I've been with the county 7 months, and I have been to your meetings when we were able to go to the meetings in person, and so this is actually my first time actually presenting to you guys. So what I'm gonna try to make it pretty brief. What Oliver is saying totally, just kind of makes sense from the standpoint of being able to look at what we have in Title 40 and basically address the issue for citing and actually developing a process to allow for essential public facilities to be cited. The other portion of that, which is House Bill 2640, is one that came out by Department of Commerce. And just to reiterate what Oliver mentioned, is that this is specific only to the community-based behavioral health facilities. It's just one component that's associated with essential public facilities, but it's one where they're giving specific guidelines that will work with all the counties within the state. And so basically once this is put on our program, allow us to start the process to put the other part, to start the first part, which is to come up with a process for developing the sites. And then the other part, when it's available, which is supposed to be sometime next spring, then we'll add that guidelines to the Title 40 amendments as well and move forward from there. I'm assuming everyone read the staff report. If there's anything, or if you guys have any questions with regards to anything in particular that's in it, let me know. Do you guys have any questions regards?
Are there questions of the council? First of all, I want to, before you do that, I want to welcome you, Mike, and thank you for this presentation. Are there questions of the council? Clarification? I see none. I'm assuming, Kathleen, that we need to take action on this. Is that correct?
Yes. Oliver, you can correct me if I'm wrong. This is the first step of a series of steps that the Community Planning Department will need to take to make this effective.
Oliver?
Can you hear me? Yes. Okay. Yes, I'm looking for the council to give us the direction to move forward on this item, and hopefully when the model ordinance comes out, we will incorporate it as we develop the code for Title 40, and that will bring us, as I mentioned earlier, and cited in the staff report, being in compliance in developing a process for citing of essential public facilities. So the action that will come before the council will make us compliant with that provision. So I'm asking for the council to give us the go-ahead to work on this.
Is the council okay with community planning moving forward with it. I guess the best way to do this is to have a motion to move forward. That way we can get the consent of the entire council.
Yes.
Madam Chair, I would make a motion to move forward. I did have a discussion comment once we move forward.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to allow the community planning to move forward on this action of creating code for essential public facilities. Is there a discussion, Councilor Medvedev?
Yes, thank you. And I'll pass on my welcome as well to Michael for that good brief. And Oliver, we've discussed in some of our one-on-ones that have not included other council members, but I have a particular interest, as many know, in airports and our discussion surrounding airports and the GMA and that essential site. So I look forward to further discussions on that because we do have some airports and always have a transportation need for airports. And so I'm hoping we can dig a little deeper into that topic.
I agree with you, Councillor. One of the things that we will do as part of this effort is also to have a definition of what are essential public facilities. And the way that is defined, I will believe, includes airports. So we will address that as we move forward. And, take for example, there was a time when the community was discussing citing another regional airport. So this effort will help us if that conversation comes up again. How do we do so? And how do we also potentially protect existing airports? So that's going to be part of the conversation.
Thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
Okay, any other items for discussion or questions? I guess would be discussion. Hearing and seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. The motion passes. Thank you, Oliver and Michael.
Thank you.
Okay, moving. County Manager Kathleen, I think you had something you'd like.
Yes, before I make a motion or a proposal to the council, I just want to make sure Councillor Blum is able to hear us and that we can hear him. He had to transition to a phone.
Yeah, sorry, I lost my internet signal for a while. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Okay, so Chair O'Brien and Council, I would like to propose to the Council to amend today's agenda to include a discussion on the possible proclamation for Labor Day that could be added to next Tuesday's Council meeting. I did send out a draft yesterday for the Council's review. This is the same one that was used last year with a little update regarding our current COVID-19. And I believe Lindsay's on as well today, and so I would just like to put this in front of the council for your consideration today.
Okay, we see the proclamation before us. Does anybody have an objection to adding this to the agenda? No, I see none. Okay, I've read the proclamation. I don't know if any of you have any questions or comment about it. And if not,
just a comment that I'm happy to have it.
Okay.
Even though we're not able to meet in person, it's good to be able to do proclamations like this one.
Yeah. Okay, I would entertain a motion then to move this forward.
Motion to approve, Madam Chair.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the proclamation for our Labor Day, and the celebration. Any further discussion?
Just a quick question. So we're
Okay,
just
Councilor
approving putting it on the Tuesday agenda. Is that the?
Oh,
I just recall ever taking a formal action like this to put it. I mean, just
yes. Looks like that. Sorry. I was just going to go forward and so we'll put it on the agenda. This is for the agenda on Tuesday.
Okay.
Okay, thank
So
you.
whether we need a formal motion or not, I guess it doesn't really matter to me, but
Yeah. I think getting, go ahead, Kathleen.
No, I see a couple small edits that will need to be made before Tuesday's agenda, the date, and then a name change and a couple of little details. So we'll make sure that that's cleaned up, and then we'll have this on Tuesday's agenda for the council to read.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. Then let's see, moving on to work session requests.
Chair O'Brien, would you like to do council reports first?
I do this every time. I apologize.
That's okay.
Council reports.
Do we have, sorry.
Is there any council reports?
Madam Chair,
Council Manager.
if I may, so we had discussed, and I know came up on one-on-ones, I thought we were going to discuss the restaurant industry's request for some flexibility and some of the changed rules going up to Olympia for consideration at the State Department of Health. And all of that also revolved, at least for me, around the $66 million that's still being withheld from the CARES Act funding that we are very quickly running out of time to impact whatsoever, and whether or not we would be able to make any other pronouncements as a council to ask the governor's staff to send that money to us so we could spend it on small businesses, rural high-speed internet to support our schools that aren't connected, our housing for our homeless, our rent stabilization, you name it. There's a long list of need that we have that we could identify right now to spend that $66 million. And it just comes up in the context that I don't think anyone's crying wolf in the restaurant business. If they comply with all the rule changes and rules in place, most likely most of them will close. So, we wouldn't be needing this discussion if we had these additional monies available for PPE and grants for small businesses. So I'm just wondering if we're going to publicly discuss this a bit more. I know we did it on our one-on-ones, at least I'm assuming we all did.
We did talk about, I did talk about this, but I mean, are there other suggestions of the council? Have we done all we can to actually solicit from the state, for these funds? I'm assuming that we have. If we have not, we should aggressively, at least communicate, maybe via letter. I don't see any special sessions coming up prior to November or the end of the year, for that matter. I don't know if any of you counselors know anything different or have any comments about that.
Madam Chair,
Councilor.
I would have the same question maybe that you all have is, what are we doing? Where are we in the process of continuing to communicate to the state with regard to the remaining CARES Act funding? I mean, I am all in favor, which is why I brought it up last week. I am really in favor of trying to do what we can to help our restaurant industry survive. They're really being hit hard by this. I don't know that I would be comfortable supporting a letter that, as Board of Health or our public health officer, couldn't support in terms of relaxing guidelines. We've got school districts and schools trying to get back to school and to kids in school. And we have maybe the next, 4 to 6 weeks that we can get these numbers down while restaurants still have the ability to be outside. But what can we do to start advocating for our restaurants now, when they're going to be back inside and when they're going to really be in trouble? We wouldn't be so serious about this right now if we had this CARES Act funding. We could be putting this into the community. We could be helping these people survive, but we don't have it. So I'm sort of torn between us trying to make a public statement about how we support our restaurant industry here in Clark County and our pleading from the state to give us this CARES Act funding that was designated for us so we can get it into our community. So that's kind of where I'm at. I'm stuck on this. But if we had the money here, we would not be so desperately trying to relax guidelines so that restaurants could stay in business. So maybe an update. Or if there's an update from anybody on kind of where we are and communicating with the state.
Kathleen, do you have any kind of update? Thank you.
Yeah, so originally, I know if you all remember, the council had sent a letter to the state. Local delegations had also sent a letter. The finance director and myself talked to OFM directly initially regarding our concerns. The finance director and the auditor's office did send the council's priorities on how this money would be spent, or options based on the last conversation, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks ago with the council. And then recently, I think it was the end of this last week, WASAC is also gathering that same information from all counties and is also in conversations with OFM and Olympia in the governor's office. Unfortunately, we're not receiving any response from OFM regarding our proposed spending plan for the additional money. But we are using opportunities, being proactive as well as responding, and keep including that conversation going as much as we can. But it's definitely frustrating when we don't have even a response from OFM regarding this. I do know, based on the WASAC email and other conversations, they are continuing conversations up there, but conversations need to come to conclusion so that we can actually get the money and spend it before the deadline approaches.
Betsy, was that? I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I was just going to add that I also spoke to Brian with Senator Murray's office. There's been a biweekly call amongst state and local and federal leaders, but we had some conversations with our federal delegation. I spoke to Brian with Senator Murray's office to try and see if they were able to have conversations with their contacts in the governor's office, and he reached out to the governor's office and basically received the same response, which is their perspective is that they have control over the funds. And that the state gets to decide how to distribute the CARES Act money, and at this point is not going to be distributing any more jurisdictions that are under 500,000. So that same information that WASAC and we have been receiving from OFM, which is basically little to no information, that's the same information that our federal delegation has been given by the governor's office as well.
I don't suppose it would help to send another letter, would it?
I don't think at this point that would be.
So I would be in support of doing something to maybe that just reiterates our request for this funding, why it's so important to our community here, why kind of going back through it. I think continuing to advocate is better than nothing.
I agree with that. I do think we should send another letter, even if it's just a reminder, and then bullet points about what we've sent, about how we would spend it, and that, we're hanging by our, nails, or our businesses are, I should say, our small businesses and our restaurants, and we need help. And so, I would propose that a letter be written up, a draft of it, and sent to us so that we can send that again to OFM and the governor about how we need these funds, and how our businesses, how the community needs it. So I don't know. Councilor Olson has stated she would be in favor of that or something similar, at least communicating. Are there others of the council that would agree we should have a draft?
So this is exactly the conversation I was hoping we would have, and just having it publicly, I think, puts the word out there once again. So I absolutely am in favor of resending a letter, but I had also, with the manager, spoken about potentially a press release. You know, because out in the community, I'm really surprised that a lot of people really don't know about this, and the local internet and local papers really haven't done much in portraying this as an important story for our Clark County. So I would love to do a letter, a very short letter, but also couple it with a press release as kind of our shout out to the state and to our community that we are trying and to advocate on behalf of our citizens to get this money that we really could put to very good use locally. So I'm in favor of both what Madam Chair has said and Councilor Olson have said.
So at the very minimum, we will have a draft letter written up. I do think, even though it should be short and to the point, it's very possible that we should have bullet points, what we have provided thus far. And we are waiting for their formal response to us or something. You know, maybe others have advice about how that should be written in a way that will get us the response that we actually want.
And it may be beneficial as well to include specific examples from our community on who's being harmed right now based on the pandemic and the guidance that we have to follow. So we can actually put in a few local examples and say this is just 3 of many that we could use this, that, you know, we're trying to keep our businesses running and our schools supported, like you said. So Lindsay can certainly draft a letter working with Mark and send this out to the council for review.
Okay, thank you very much. Other councilor reports? Okay, I don't hear or see any. We will move on then to work session requests. Is that, who's coming forward?
Patrick Lee. Hopefully you're hearing me.
I am, Patrick.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, the Conservation Areas Acquisition Plan is a document that helps us retain eligibility for certain state grant programs. And it needs to be updated every 6 years. It also helps us prioritize program work activities and also plan for the use of the Conservation Futures Fund. The plan was last updated in 2014, so we are due for an update, and we would love the opportunity to have a work session with council with a request to refer the project to the Parks Advisory Board for further vetting. I think an important priority that we'd like to address is we have a couple of projects from the 2018 bond issue that have dropped out, and it would be nice to identify replacement projects for those. And that would be one of the main purposes of moving forward with the work session, having projects vetted by the Parks Advisory Board and returned to council for consideration and hopefully adoption of the Conservation Areas Acquisition Plan. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. What is the feeling of the council on this? Any discussion? You want to move forward with the work session?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I hear a couple of yeses there, and I see a nodding
Yes.
head. Okay,
Yes.
Yes, let's go ahead and move forward with this. I guess get it on the schedule when we are available. And that takes care of that. We'll see you for this work session then.
Right.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Okay, Lindsay, do you have anything for us this morning? Any additional?
I do. I have one quick thing, and I'm going to try and see if I can. I'm not sure if it'll let me share the content. So it's not letting me share my screen. But what I wanted to talk to you about is the legislative agenda. And I had sent out the email before with sort of a draft list of potential legislative priorities, a continuation of prior priorities, looking at potentially 179th Street, the MFTE, the multifamily tax exemption, and then also the 0.09 for economic development. A continuation of a prior priority, the CASA funding, we of course secured that, and then it was vetoed in the budget. And then there's the request we've talked about for the care coordination, largely for homeless individuals. It would be a $300,000 request out of the operating budget. Additionally, in addition to those Clark County specific priorities of supporting WASAC efforts regarding the COVID response, there are some discussions about fiscal relief packages, potentially some fiscal flexibility for local governments. And so not sure yet what that's going to look like, but we'll continue to follow that. And then also a number of counties have begun to coalesce, and I know it's a priority for many of you to look at whether it be financial support or policy support for the expansion of rural broadband access. And then continuing to follow, the I-5 bridge. Any progress that's made there, monitoring law enforcement reforms. I know that that's been a topic of interest for some of you, and then continuing to monitor any changes related to the GMA. You'll recall that, of course, in the last legislative session, they sort of kicked the can an additional year to look at some possible changes to the GMA. So that would, of course, be something that we would monitor. So at this point, what I wanted to check in with you is to see if there's anything major that's not on the list, and then also whether or not you were ready to bring Josh back in early September to really finalize and hone down that list so that we can then be communicating with our legislative delegation. With it coming up to being a budget year, and then also the uncertainty related to COVID, we're getting the sense that legislators are working behind closed doors more than typical to really try and hammer some things out in the fall so that there's not, we just don't know what the legislative session is going to look like. What we do know is that it's unlikely to be the full in-person legislative session that we're used to seeing, where you have lots and lots of people around the buildings and all of that. So I think it's going to look different, and the earlier that we can have our legislative agenda hammered out and begin to talk to our delegation about those priorities, I think will position us better for 2021. So I know that Josh is hoping to come back to you early to mid-September to really finalize that list. But I wanted to check in with you and see if there's anything major that I'm missing, or if you're ready for me to schedule that with Josh.
Comments of the council.
I have a question.
Councilor Lamb.
I think this looks good. One thing, and perhaps this did get resolved, but in the last call with Josh, it mentioned the potential capital funding, and wondering if community services and our partners may have a potential project that's ready enough to go that we could ask for that support, since Josh had indicated that while operating budget was going to be strapped, there was going to be some capital funding, and just wanting to make sure that we pursue that. If there's nothing, there's nothing, but I wouldn't want to miss that opportunity.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And I reached out to Vanessa, and the one potential that is out there is, of course, during COVID, we have rented the motel. And there have been some discussions amongst, okay, can we maybe look at this as a permanent solution? And obviously, we hope COVID isn't permanent, but it has been a successful operation in some ways related to how we serve the homeless. And so, some of our community partners looking at, okay, how can we learn what we've learned from this through COVID and potentially then look at a permanent solution or a permanent way to help the homeless. That proposal's not quite ready to move forward at this point, but I'm continuing to have those conversations with Vanessa and have let her know that if that is something that the community partners would like the council to support, that we can certainly bring that to the council for consideration. But that's the only one, and when I reached out, the only one that may sort of gain enough, become solid enough that it would become a proposal in time. But if there's any other priorities that the council wants to consider, but in my reaching out, that was really the only one that sort of percolated to the top.
Thank you. No, and I'd heard a little bit about that and potential, whether it's that particular motel or others, that might be a possibility. And I would just say, please do keep pursuing that. And if it turns out that there may be the benefit of a partnership in going after some of these funds to do it with Vancouver Housing Authority, City of Vancouver, that sort of thing. However we can be helpful in building that to make it more feasible I'd certainly be open to that. So thank you.
Great. Yep. No, I'll certainly continue to be in touch with Vanessa, and I know she's in touch with Andy Silver and with VHA and our community partners.
Okay, other comments, questions, discussion about the list? Honestly, I probably have to revisit it just to refresh my mind. I don't know if I'm the only one. I guess I should have done that before this meeting, but I will look it over. I think probably we should do as Lindsay has suggested, meet with Josh, maybe early mid-September, so that we can get our ducks in a row, and then meet, via WebEx, whatever, with our delegation if they are available and willing. So, is that kind of the consent of the council? I see. Yes, I see. Okay.
Great.
Yeah. All right.
I will reach out to Josh and we'll target either the 9th or the 16th of September for him to come to council time. And then we'll set up a time with our legislative delegation for early to mid-October. Thank you.
Okay, that sounds great. Thank you. Okay, if there's nothing, it looks like our agenda here is complete, and we need to move to executive session for 2 pending litigations for 45 minutes. Will there be action after?
No action.
No action. All right. So we will adjourn this portion of the council time and move to a different WebEx where we will be in executive session.
Before you do that, Chair, I had sent an email requesting that we also discuss a third matter in executive session, not needing action, but revisiting a rezoning discussion.
Councillor Medveji, I think that's, we can discuss that and that's already on the agenda.
Thank you. Sorry.
Okay. All right. We'll see you on the other side. I'm going to take 2 minutes.